Yo, what's up, guys? It's Coach Nate with another episode of Steel Strength Radio. All right, or you're checking us out on YouTube. But anyway, I'm going to be referencing my laptop, so you're going to see me looking over here. But basically, we're going to be talking about the importance of understanding the difference in what the scale is telling you and how we can understand it, how we can interpret it based on whether you are super early in your strength training career and or late into your strength training career. All right, so first of all, there's a very big difference, and of course it is a spectrum, but there's a very big difference between somebody in their first 0 to 6 months of strength training versus somebody that's been training more than 2 years, okay? The response that you are getting at that point is very different. Now, it is very beneficial for everyone to continue strength training for life because it is very good to be strong and muscular and healthy, and it is very bad to be weak and not muscular and unhealthy, okay? So you should be strength training, but it does change what we can know or what the scale is telling us or how accurately. Anyway, let's just dive in, all right? So basically, the earlier you are in your strength training career, the more cautious you need to be when interpreting the results that the scale is telling you. And the longer you've been strength training, the more you can trust the numbers that you see, so to speak. All right, so let me explain. First of all, we need to understand that there are so many things that have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with fat gain or fat loss that impact the scale day to day. When you see the scale up or down by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6, 7, 8 pounds, I don't know what you were doing the night before, but it can happen sometimes. When you see numbers like that, there is no way that highly unlikely, basically no way that you've lost 1 pound of fat or gained 1 pound of fat. Now, if you are really, really going hog wild at a party, you could gain, golly, you'd have to really be getting after it. If you ate like 6,000 calories and sat on the couch all day, then you could gain 1 pound of fat in a day. And if you literally didn't eat and walked a lot, then you could lose a pound of fat. But I don't see many people doing this ever. So basically, if you see a change of 1 pound from day to day, you can be confident that that change is not caused by fat loss or fat gain. Okay, now, and when you start talking about 2 pound, 3 pound, 4 pound, 5, all right, all the way up to 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, a little rhyme for you there. But look, if you're talking about those kinds of changes, there's no way that you are gaining or losing that much fat, all right? So despite what the emotional center in your brain, maybe that's the amygdala, maybe it's something else. Somebody else help me out. But look, I'm not a brain scientist. I'm a strength training scientist. And so here's the deal. Despite what that emotional part of your brain is ding, 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 going off, making you freak out, you did not gain or lose that fat. Just sit down and chill out and listen. Off the top of my head, I took 30 seconds to list all the things I could think of. Again, just off the top of my head, all right? I didn't do any research or look into this, all right? Just off the top of my head, the things that cause fluctuations in our weight from day to day, from today to tomorrow to the next day, all right? Salt intake, carb intake, water intake, how much poop, how much crap you have in your system, how much urine you have in your system. Do you have inflammation? Are you bloated? The woman's monthly cycle, hormonal changes, medication changes, whether or not you worked out the day before, how hard your workout was, whether it was a cardio or strength training workout, and whether or not someone else is putting their foot on the scale to play a dirty trick on you, all right? This list is not exhaustive, but it's something that I came up with in 30 seconds. I just gave you over 10 things that cause day-to-day changes on the scale that have nothing to do with fat loss or gain, okay? Then you have to factor in the things that don't affect weight on a day-to-day basis, but over the course of weeks they can impact your weight. I'm not going to go into these. You can read an article that talks about this. It's on the website. You know what? I'm going to open it up. We're going to talk about it. All right, in your first month of strength training, I wrote an article called 5 Reasons the Scale Went Up in Your First Month of Strength Training, all right? That have nothing to do with fat. So yeah, you're increasing muscle mass. We're going to talk about that in a second, but let's ignore that now, okay? Save it for later. Increased blood volume. Did you know that when you go from not working out to starting to work out, you actually increase blood volume? That's right, you have more blood pumping through your body. Blood delivers oxygen and nutrients. That's why you feel so dang good when you're working out. All right, you got more blood in you, but it also makes you gain some weight, okay? That can happen over the course of weeks. It only happens in your first few weeks, and then that kind of levels off. But it is a change that can add a little bit of weight to the scale, all right? Next is inflammation. So like I mentioned in that day-to-day thing earlier, when you go from not working out at all to working out, you actually have inflammation. Inflammation is not inherently a bad thing. There's a difference between acute inflammation, which is good, and chronic inflammation, which is bad. Chronic inflammation means you're chronically always inflamed for a long period of time. You want to address that. Acute inflammation is good. It's part of the healing process. Inflammation is a way for the body to promote healing. And so when you start working out, you are doing a little bit of damage. Hopefully not too much, because hopefully your trainer's not crazy. Hopefully they know what they're doing. And hopefully you're not going at this alone and being a wild animal in the gym and not actually knowing what you're doing. But anyway, acute inflammation is totally fine, but along with that is going to come a little bit of water retention, a little bit of weight gain from the inflammation. Not a bad thing. If you stop, people see this when my clients see this when they go on vacation. They take a week off from training, they come back, 3 pounds lighter, and they're like, oh, I lost weight. And it's like, well, maybe, but you probably also were just, some of that inflammation was going away because you weren't training. And it'll come right back as soon as you start lifting. But again, it has nothing to do with fat. The next thing is increased glycogen storage. So over those first few weeks of strength training, your body will start to store more glycogen. Glycogen is a fancy way of saying carb stores, okay? So we eat carbohydrates and then our body stores them as glycogen in the liver and in the muscle. And we're talking about the muscle here. So your muscle glycogen stores will increase. This is great because basically the body will save that carbohydrate in the muscle for later use during intense exercises, typically when it's used. But here's the thing, for every gram of carbohydrate that you store in glycogen, you store 3 grams of water. All of this can contribute to a little bit of weight gain. Whew. All right, so there's that. Okay, those things cause weight gain over the course of a few weeks. And then the last thing, of course, is muscle, which will continue to increase really, up to a decade or more of strength training. However, all right, here's the deal. We need to understand a spectrum here. All right, you need to understand, when we're talking about the scale, it's very important that you understand how quickly you're building muscle. When you first start, month 0, you will build muscle faster in month 0 than any other month in the future, assuming you're training properly, which is what we do. We train, and we train properly here at Steel Strength Training. You will build more muscle in your first 3 months of strength training than you will in your next 3. Then you will in your next 3, then you will in your next 3. And drawing it out even bigger picture, you will build more muscle in your first year of strength training than you will in your second year, than you will in your third, etc. Okay? And then to draw an even bigger picture, you will likely build more muscle in your first 2 years of strength training, done properly, than you will in years 3 through infinity. Okay? So you're gonna build a lot of muscle relative to your potential in your first 2 years of strength training. And the majority of that is going to come during year 1. Okay, to give you a little numbers, if you're a numbers person like me, if you're not, close your ears and go la 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 la, just like that, okay? Hopefully that'll take you back to your childhood, some good memories there. But for your numbers people, listen up. In your first year, you will probably build 40% of your potential muscle mass. That's a lot. And you'll probably build 20 to 30% in your next year. This means by the end of year 2, you've built 60 to 70% of your potential muscle mass. And then you might build 5 to 10% or less in the years after that, years 3 through 10 or whatever. After 10 years, it's going to be, you will still gain muscle, but it's going to be very minimal. At that point, or probably long before that, your everyday person, maybe after a couple years of training, want to switch to more of a maintenance plan in terms of muscle mass. But anyway, here's the deal. Your first month is going to be a wild ride, a dadgum roller coaster. So get on that thing because it's going to be great for you. It's going to be a great time, but it is going to be a roller coaster. There's going to be lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of, fighting gravity, lots of flying down, feeling like your stomach has left you. All right, we're being dramatic here, but I'm being dramatic here, doing what I do best. But here's the deal. Your first month is going to be crazy. You just read the article that I mentioned earlier. So just observe in your first month of strength training. I would not necessarily make any big decisions based on what you see in your first month. Just take your weight at the beginning of the month when you first start, or at the beginning of strength training. After 1 month of strength training, take your weight and just accept it, whether it's down 2 pounds, up 3 pounds, doesn't matter, up 5 pounds, whatever. Just accept that as your new baseline. Because all those changes, the increased blood volume, increased glycogen, the inflammation, all those things happen in the first month and then they kind of level out. This is your new starting weight, all right? In your next 11 months, so that will finish your first year of strength training, if you're losing weight, if you're losing fat, the scale is going to go down if you're losing a significant amount of fat. However, it's not going to go down as quickly as, like, the scale will show a much lower decrease in weight than the amount of fat you've actually lost. Meaning, let's say you build 20 pounds of muscle. Let's say 15. Let's say you build 15 pounds of dry, hard, shredded muscle tissue, okay? And then in addition to that, you got some water weight and all that stuff. But let's say you got 15 pounds you gained in your first year. But at the end of the first year, you're only down 15 pounds on the scale. Well, guess what? Not only did you build 15 pounds of muscle, but you lost 30 pounds of fat. Because the scale is down 15 pounds, you built 15 pounds of muscle, okay? That means you've lost 30 pounds of fat, okay? So the same thing applies to the second year. It's just you're gonna build less muscle. So let's say you lose another 15 pounds year 2, but let's say you're following the same plan. You actually end up losing 20 pounds on the scale in year 2, but you've built 10 pounds of muscle. That means you've lost another 30 pounds, which means that after 2 years, despite weighing only 30 pounds less, you have actually lost 60 pounds. These numbers are they're not crazy. They're not crazy at all. It's pretty typical to see this kind of response. So you need to understand what you are looking for. A weight loss when you're strength training, especially when you're starting out, of 0.5 to 1 pound per week is really great. It's really, really great, and it's something to be proud of. You can take that to the bank. All right. After year 2, now let's have an uncomfortable conversation for those of us who have been lifting for more than 2 years. Will you continue to build muscle in 2 years? Yes. Are you likely to build 10 pounds of muscle in your 3rd year? Probably not. 5 pounds? Probably. 8 pounds? Maybe. 10 pounds? Possibly, but not likely. But let's say 10 pounds, okay? Let's say 12 pounds. Very unlikely. Let's say you build 12 pounds in your 3rd year of strength training. If your weight is the same in year 3 of strength training, you've probably lost some fat, but you've probably only lost 5 to 10 pounds, maybe 12, if that's how much muscle you built, which is unlikely. But let's say you did lose 12 pounds, or you did build 12 pounds of muscle, but your weight's the same after a year. You're only down 12 pounds of fat. Now, it's still something to be proud of. That's fantastic. And of course, it just depends on your goals. But it's something to keep in mind. Remember, the longer that you train, if you've been training for more than 2 years, and especially if you've been training 3 or 4 years, you are not going to be building a whole lot of muscle mass. And you'll also notice that your strength while it will increase, it will not increase nearly as quickly as it did in your first year or 2 of strength training. Okay? And after you've been training, this is a story for a video for another day. This is already dragging out. But after you've been training for a year or 2, your strength is going to be closely related to how much muscle mass you have. So how much strength you gain is going to be a good indicator of how much muscle you are or are not building. All right, so what this means is, all right, in summary, okay, if you've been strength training for 2 years, you will continue to build muscle for the next 8+ years, but the amount and speed at which you'll gain that muscle is much slower, like we just talked about a million times, because I'm real good at finding dead horses and beating them up. All right, at this point, all right, besides the day-to-day fluctuations that are still going to happen, they're going to happen forever and ever, okay? Besides the day-to-day fluctuations that are sure to happen, your weight is a fairly accurate indicator of your body composition. And I don't mean, if you're up 2 pounds today compared to yesterday that you put on 2 pounds of fat. No, you got to go to those day-to-day fluctuations. I'm not saying if you're down 3 pounds tomorrow that you lost 3 pounds of fat. No, you probably ate fewer carbs yesterday or less salt or whatever, okay? We know that there are a lot of those day-to-day fluctuations that, impact the scale that have nothing to do with fat. But what I do mean is that over 3 months, let's say 3 months go by and you are down about 8 pounds, okay? Your average weight, your window. Let's say you normally weigh 205 to 215. But then that whole range goes down 8 pounds. Let's say it goes down 10 pounds for easy math over 3 months. And it goes to 195 to 205, you can be confident that you've lost about 10 pounds of fat. And if your weight goes from 205 to 250, from 205 to 215, that's your window, and that it goes up to 215 to 225, you did not build 10 pounds of muscle in 3 months. I'm sorry. You ate too many Christmas cookies. And you can be confident that you have probably gained 10 pounds of fat. Now, the bad news for those of you that have been lifting for a while is that if you don't like the number you've been seeing on the scale, you don't like the truth. However, the good news is that the scale, assuming we understand those day-to-day fluctuations and the averages, is actually a fantastic indicator of your body composition. So for people who have been lifting for a long time, if we track your strength, if you're getting stronger and you want to lose weight and you want to lose fat, if you're getting stronger and you're losing fat, you're going to see the scale, like you want to see the scale go down. If you want to lose fat after you've been strength training for 2+ years, you definitely want to see the scale move down. If you have a significant amount of fat to lose, then you need to see a significant amount of weight reduced on the scale. And I'll wrap it up with this. In conclusion, one other thing is that it is important to remember, like, to let go of how much you should weigh. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine this morning, and I was saying, like, for me to fall within the normal body weight range, the normal, like, healthy body weight range, I would have to lose 60 pounds. I'd probably be pretty shredded. But I have no interest in doing that. I think it would be a very painful process, and I'm not interested in losing 60 pounds. And so I do think it is important to remember that when you've been training, if you've built 10, 20, 30, 40 pounds of muscle mass over the course of your training career, like, that's real weight. So if you are, you're used to looking a certain way at 180 pounds, you're going to look that way if you've built 40 pounds of muscle at 220 pounds. So, something to keep in mind. Don't beat yourself up about the actual weight that you weigh, but I do think it is important. It's a very valuable tool to track in terms of the changes that you see in the scale. For those of you who hung with me this long, drop a comment. I would love to know who actually watched this far. You guys are amazing. You are the real deal. You'll have a good one.